Hello, my name is Daniel Schoonmaker, and I'm the Executive Director of West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum. Thank you for joining us for our second legislative forum on resiliency and sustainability in Michigan, today featuring Senator Debbbie Stabenow and 3rd District Congressional candidate Hillary Scholten. For those that are not aware, Michigan Sustainable Business Forum is a project of West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum, working to promote business practices, advance climate leadership, community resilience, social justice, and the creation of a circular economy. This is part of a project that we're working on with support from the Environmental Defense Fund in partnership with American Sustainable Business Council and others to elevate the need for public sector leadership to promote our communities and economy to protect our communities and economy from present and emerging threats, and to provide an opportunity for our current and potential elected representatives to hear about these concerns from impacted businesses and community leaders. Specifically, we are most interested in how we can invest in climate resiliency and racial equality, and how COVID-19 is informing these efforts. Our panelists today include U.S. Senator Debbbie Stabenow, Congressional candidate Hillary Scholten, Kareem Scales, Administrative Operations and Executive Director for the Greater Grand Rapids NAACP, Keith Wynn, President of Catalyst Partners, and Angelica Velasquez, owner of La Casa de la Copiba. The next hour is, Marta Johnson of the American Sustainable Business Council. The next hour is going to go by very fast, and we're looking forward to this discussion. I'd like to now turn the screen over to Senator Stabenow for some initial remarks.
Well, thank you, Dan, and good afternoon to everyone. It's wonderful to have a chance to be with you talking about what I think is the one, if not the most important, one of the very most important issues that we've got to tackle together. And I think it really rises to the top when we talk about our economy, sustainability, the climate crisis, racial and social justice. I mean, it really brings everything together on how we're going to move forward with all of the challenges that we have. So I want to thank you very much. I really am looking forward to hearing more about your social equity and environmental justice program. And I'm also very pleased to be here with my friend Hillary Scholten, who I know is no stranger to these issues. And it's wonderful having her voice and her leadership on these issues as well. So I want to thank all of you for what you are doing, and also let you know that for me, when we look at really the two threats, I mean, we have the pandemic right in front of us, and then right there with it, on top of it, is the climate crisis. It's the 1-2 punch of what's going to, and what is in fact changing our way of life in our world. And we've got to get our arms around both of those and be bold about what we're doing and make sure that we are incorporating what needs to be done for everyone and every community. For me in the United States Senate, I am in the middle of all of these discussions moving forward on the climate crisis as a senior member of the Energy Committee, as a top senior member on Finance Committee, where all of the tax credits around clean energy are debated and we would love to get passed as soon as possible. And then as the lead Democrat on the Agriculture, Nutrition and Forestry Committee, agriculture has a really important role to play. Sustainable agriculture, carbon sequestration, things that we can do that relate to forestry, a tree holds more carbon than probably almost anything else around you, and strategies that we need to do together there are something that, frankly, if I'm fortunate enough to be chairing the committee next year, it will be my top priority, both the issue around the climate crisis as well as food access, and they both go together. So let me just share a little bit about my work as it relates to what's right in front of us with the pandemic. Obviously, this has been the toughest year, without question, that probably we've ever had, a once in a lifetime pandemic. And we know that for people of color, communities of color, they have been hit the hardest. our minority-owned businesses having the most challenges in terms of access to capital. And one of the first things that I did with our Senate caucus back in April, based on what I was seeing happening in Michigan in terms of deaths, 14% of our citizens are African American at that time, 41%, 14% citizens, 41% of the deaths. And so I was raising red flags with colleagues and said, we have to talk about this and focus on this. And as head of our policy committee, I put together a report that Senator Cory Booker, Senator Kamala Harris, Senator Chuck Schumer, and I released about the racial disparities on full display under this pandemic. And we know what they are, and I won't go through all of them, but just to say whether it is access to healthcare, whether it is our essential workers going to work and putting themselves in harm's way and higher risk every single day, access to food. Also on that list is the fact that communities of color are more likely to be in situations where there's poor air quality or water quality. And so environmental justice issues and what has happened in terms of threatening people is extremely serious, and we have to make this a top priority. So after doing that report, in looking at all of the different exposures in ways that there are racial disparities and frankly discrimination, we then look at all of that as it relates to the climate crisis. Same disparities, same risks, same challenges, same needs, as you know, for economic justice. So here in Michigan, and I know that there's been discussion today, and I know you're aware of how serious this is in Michigan. Everybody talks about the water warming on the coast, and yet right here around the Great Lakes, we are seeing temperatures go up. Lake Superior is the fifth most.
Where is it?
I think we may have lost her. Well, Hillary, I expect that the senator will return after some technical difficulties. Would you like to begin your initial remarks, and then we'll let her finish her thought when she's able to get back online?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to thank everyone for joining us here today. This is such a crucial issue. As Senator Stabenow was just saying, it has never been more important that we take the environmental threats posed by climate change seriously, especially as we look at the devastating impacts they have on communities of color here. I look forward to partnering with each and every one of you on tackling this very serious crisis. When people ask me what are the top issues I'm focusing on in this campaign, protecting our environment, addressing climate change, and cleaning up our drinking water here in West Michigan from toxic PFAS chemicals to lead in our water, and protecting our Great Lakes. These are some of the top issues that are motivating me in my campaign. As a mother of 2 young children, I think about these impacts every single day. As a public interest lawyer, someone who has committed her life to advocating, especially for marginalized communities, this is something that I have seen firsthand from the devastating impact of toxic chemicals and unsafe housing conditions on our migrant farm worker communities here in West Michigan, to, again, the major lead contamination issues that we have just around the corner from me in the 49507 region here. I'm fighting to keep our communities safe. I'm so grateful to each of you for coming out. You are our eyes and ears on the ground, and I really want to make myself available to you all for your feedback, to hear about what's going on with you. And just thank you so much for having me. I look forward to answering more of your questions in the Q&A session.
Great, thank you so much. Real quick, Rose, do we have anything from the Senator's team as far as when we might be expecting her back?
Not at this time. I just sent a couple of messages. So.
All right. Well, I'd like to at this time introduce Kareem Scale. Oh, there she is. Wonderful. Senator, would you like to finish your thoughts? You were talking about the Great Lakes.
I was talking about the Great Lakes. I so apologize. The world we are in, everything is about technology, and I'm not sure what happened, but somebody pulled a plug. So I wanted to mention the fact that back a number of months ago, pre-COVID, I put together a report on the climate crisis in Michigan. And I know you've received a lot of information about this, but as an example, I wanted to stress that Lake Superior is the 5th fastest warming lake in the world. And all of the implications of what's going on in Michigan right now are pretty frightening. But I also have to say that as part of that, I did a West Michigan tour, and I just want to end with this because I want to thank everybody in West Michigan who's doing just really great things, because yes, we have a crisis. Yes, we have racial disparities and inequities. Yes, we have a lot to do. Yes, we have a pandemic. We also have people that are caring and smart, and we can do something about it. And so we saw during that time Circuit West Sustainability Project with rooftop solar panels, as you know, and advanced battery storage and electric vehicle charging stations, all of these things moving forward and happening in Grand Rapids. We visited Roosevelt Park neighborhood to see the great work that is being done to make the neighborhood sustainable and safe, being done by the community members. I was so impressed. Inner City Christian Federation, a nonprofit housing corporation to help families find safe and environmentally sustainable homes. And we stopped by Brewery Vivant, which I'm proud to say, and so proud of them, the first ever LEED certified production brewery in the United States, and the beer is great. And so, but the commitment was incredible that I saw. And I know this was months ago, and I know so much more is happening. And I know you're on this call because you care deeply, and I'm sure you are involved in all of these efforts. They are all connected. All of these things are connected. We just have to understand what's happening, be focused, believe in science, take all of our energies, and wherever we are, whether it's the community, whether it's a policymaker, whether it's a business owner, whatever we're doing, we are at a moment right now, a moment that is incredibly important. And I just want to close, Dan, with one of my favorite quotes from Dr. King. He said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." And that applies to the environment. It applies to what's happening in the pandemic. It applies to every part of our lives. And we have to commit ourselves to get beyond this. And so I'm really glad to be with you.
Thank you so much. I'm now going to introduce Kareem Scales, Administrative Operations and Executive Director of the Greater Grand Rapids NAACP, who's going to share a little bit about his experiences during COVID-19 and in general, and ask some questions of the Senator and Ms. Scholten. Kareem?
Thanks, Dan. Again, thanks for having me. Thank you, Hillary and Senator Stabenow, for being a part of this very important discussion. I'm honored to be a part of the call today. So again, brief introduction, Kareem Scales. I am currently Administrator of Operations for the Greater Grand Rapids branch of the NAACP. We have been around for 100 years. The local branch here just celebrated our 100th anniversary this year. So really excited to be celebrating that centennial. And very interesting times, to say the least. So just to give a little background, primarily NAACP typically engages in more advocacy work, where we advocate for individuals who have been discriminated against, and not just Black and brown individuals, but all individuals, whether it's due to disability, age, sex. So that's kind of a misconception of the organization. We advocate for people in all those different classes. But over the last few months, our work has transitioned in a way to really provide a direct response to some of the needs in the community. I'll start off with right when COVID, when the pandemic first hit, we had received a number of inquiries from community about support in areas of rent, food, utilities, technology. So what we did is we put together a plan and partnered with organizations like United Way, AT&T being one of those partners as well, where we partner with those organizations, and with our network, we're able to distribute over $50,000 in support to various people in the community, primarily starting with those who've been hit the hardest here in 49507. So we started off distributing those funds to those in need. We actually had our first food distribution to provide support to those individuals who needed food support. We also provided a care package of cleaning supplies for those individuals who didn't have access to that, where we served over 250 families in the community. So that gives kind of just a background as to some of our experience during the pandemic. But back to what I was saying, as far as the advocacy work, that is actually heightened. Like President Jackson has said, for those of you who know him, Black and brown communities, unfortunately, have been in a pandemic way before COVID-19. So a lot of these issues that have been heightened and put on the forefront now have been the issues that organizations like NAACP and Urban League have been trying to address for years. So we've seen a spike in our complaint process. Individuals just on all levels have needed the support of our organization, and we've had to do what we can to ramp up our staff to meet those needs. I'll touch on some of the support that we've provided to small businesses. Most of you are familiar with the Kent County Small Business Recovery Program grant. That was a grant with CARES Act funds. The county allowed the chamber to administer to support small businesses with 25 or less employees. They specifically reached out to individuals and organizations like NAACP to help get the word out to minority communities so that they can get an opportunity to get those funds. So I was able to work with the chamber, and we did a marketing campaign all throughout the Grand Rapids community to make sure individuals were aware. We did some Zoom workshops where we, kind of help people with the application process. And there's a number of challenges that minority businesses face that we've been made more aware of. A lot of it, just to kick off, is just the lack of trust from the system in itself. So a lot of times when we spoke with individuals about the grant opportunity, they were just hesitant to even engage. It just seemed like something that wasn't for them. So, and that was even when it came from someone like myself. So there's still a huge distrust out there in the community as it relates to that. But with the work of myself and others in the community, we were able to help minorities get access to those funds. And to my knowledge, I think that they've started to distribute some of those funds over the last couple of weeks. So there's been a number of challenges. We are in the process of actually scheduling our second distribution that we are looking to support community. That'll be September 11th. We'll be hosting here at the center. We'll also be partnering with Cherry Health, where they'll have a COVID-19 mobile testing site available here at the center, as well as partnering with Spectrum and their veggie van. where we'll be providing fresh produce and actually helping people register to vote on site as well. So stay tuned for more information about some of the work that we're doing, but I'd like to transition into a question actually for Senator Stabenow as it relates to some of the conversations we had today. And the question is, how can the federal government help improve the economic and environmental justice in communities across Michigan? But I would like to hear primarily, and you know, to put a specific focus on marginalized Black and Brown communities as it relates to that question. So that's the question for Senator Stabenow.
Well, thank you, Kareem, and thank you for all that you're doing and the NAACP. To me, this is a question that should be asked as part of everything that's done by the federal government. It's not sort of a box over the side, you know what I mean? It's like if we're focused on access to capital for small business, or we're focused on education, or we're focused on what is being done in new clean energy, or in what's being done around lead in water and homes, what is being done in healthcare and access to healthcare and access to health centers and insurance and so on. The whole question of equity needs to be built into every policy and every program that's funded. And I think that's one of the challenges right now, is we don't see the same. We don't see it being built in, or we aren't looking at the various risks of communities who haven't been able to get healthcare, maybe have more pre-existing conditions, or again, have more asthma because they live in a part of town that has horrible air pollution, therefore more likely to get COVID-19, which is a respiratory disease. So in every one of those areas, it involves funding, outreach. It has to start with understanding and a commitment that this needs to be addressed. And right now, this has been a real struggle. And as you know, I mean, you were talking about the CARES Act. We did bring in dollars under the CARES Act. I was very involved on the food access part of that, and the issues around unemployment and eviction protections, and as well as the small business programs and so on. But we saw even there in the CARES Act that the PPP program, as we call it, ended up not going to the smallest businesses, not going to businesses of color. The vast majority went to actually very big businesses and those with well-established banking relationships. And so we had to go back and have a big fight, but we were able to change it so that other lenders, community development financial institutions, minority business lenders, and so on, would be given a priority, and that we would actually put money aside to do that. So to me, it's a combination of things. You have to understand, you have to want to fix it, you have to make sure everything that's done is structured in a way that it's not just for those who are well connected, but that everybody has a chance to participate and hopefully build back up some of the trust that you were talking about, that people have lost about trusting institutions and trusting whether or not somebody will actually be able to help them. We have to show that people actually really do get help so that we can build back that trust.
Kareem, you had a question for Ms. Scholten as well, correct?
Yes, very similar to the question that we posed to Senator Stabenow, but more specific to Hillary. If you were elected, what would be your plan to address climate change and economic inequality? I know the term, the Green New Deal, hasn't necessarily been the favorite, but I think the concept in addressing climate change and economic inequality as it relates, as the two relate, I think is relevant to the conversation. So what would be your plan to address climate change and economic inequality?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of, as I mentioned in some of my introductory remarks, you know, addressing climate change and the environmental impacts facing West Michigan is one of the main reasons I raised my hand to run. it's personal for me as a mom of 2 children and as a public interest lawyer who has seen the devastating impacts here in West Michigan. We have to move towards clean, renewable energy sources. I support an all of the above approach to reducing our carbon emissions. Here, when it comes to addressing water issues in West Michigan, absolutely, we have to address the critical infrastructure needs at keeping lead out of our waters and cleaning up toxic PFAS chemicals. We had a great group of bipartisan congressional leaders who worked on the PFAS action plan, which would enable the EPA to hold polluters accountable so that PFAS contamination is addressed by the polluters themselves, not by the taxpayers. One of the things that I think we have really been missing out on here for the last 10 years in Michigan's 3rd Congressional District in particular is a representative who is very focused on bringing resources from the federal government back to our community to address the issues that our community in particular faces from climate change, environmental disasters. Look no further than the Great Lakes Restoration Project. Look no further than the PFAS Action Plan, which Congressman Amash voted against and was not a part of. So, there are a number of things that the federal government can do to address these things. Holding polluters accountable, making sure the United States is a key player, pushing to re-enter the Paris Climate Accords. And these are just a few of the things that I would fight for, in addition to making sure that our communities, our state and local governments within the 3rd Congressional District have the backup they need from the federal government to address the impact of climate change in our community.
Thank you so much, Kareem. Thank you both for those answers. Now I'd like to introduce Angelica Velasquez, the owner of La Casa de la Cohiba, who will share her experiences trying to run a business during COVID-19.
Hi, my name is Angelica Velasquez, and I want to share a little bit about what is Angelica Velasquez and this community. I have a small business and division in Alger and Grand Rapids. And my business is like a blanket for the community. That's adopted a store like a community center. And we have a lot of issues, so we're working for that. I have a represent one group of ladies, the Grandmas to the Rescue, that we are together to support community. And we are closed the store right now in temporary, but we are open to my space to the parking lot to make a distribution from the community's food for the everywhere, because this corridor is like a forgiving people to live there, and they don't receive a lot of resources. They don't receive we don't have a food distribution, but we are working in those places, and many people bring food to the distribution, like a YMCA. We knock door, and they come to get the food from there. The other way, they pull it. Sorry, I'm nervous because I am. But I want to tell you about that. We have a lot of struggle time with the COVID-19. And because we have a lot of Hispanic community, they don't qualify for enough the federal money. They don't qualify for the money from the yeah. But what I say that we have a struggle time for this community. We need to something change for this, because they pay taxes and they work and they pay taxes, but they do not receive nothing. And that one of the things for me is very sad to to see those people, they suffer, they don't qualify for go to the hospital, they don't have insurance, they don't have nothing. And the people, they have a COVID-19 and they suffer lonely in home. And we knock doors and bring some food because of medication, just that. But what I said about the COVID-19, we wanted to change, to provide something else to this community. And another thing, we have a lot of trouble with the small business because not everybody qualify for the grants from this. And I wanted to, if you can pull some little money from this business, except of mine, I'm not talking about my business, I'm talking about the people through there, with more transparency, because everybody to apply for some grants and they don't qualify. And that's what I'm thinking about. I don't want it to miss or lose some business through there. And we are working, and we are very concerned how we can make to, or bring to, how you can provide, how you can help that business. I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
It's all right.
How do you have some plan to help the business from the 501-4907? I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Senator, would you like to go first?
Jump on, Angelica, you did great.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for keeping things going. And thank you for reaching out on access to food. This is near and dear to my heart in the role I play in the Senate, trying to get more additional money, leading the Democrats as SNAP, their supplemental nutrition program, getting more money for food banks, trying to figure out, how do we take food that farmers are usually sell in bulk, to big restaurants or other things, and they don't have a way to package it to get it to the food bank. Been very involved in trying to turn that around, as well as for our kids right now, whether they're virtual. I just did a press conference this morning, actually, with our superintendents from Michigan, talking about the fact that the U.S. Department of Agriculture is not giving the flexibility we need to take the funding that would be used to feed children in school and allow it fully to be used a different way so that children can be fed at home and so on. And I can't believe in the middle of a pandemic we're fighting about whether or not children will be hungry and families will be hungry. So thank you very, very much for that. And really, as you are talking, it just reminds me so much and what Karina is saying in terms of, what can be done. It's all about priorities. First of all, let's just say it's all about priorities in everything. It's all about what are your funding priorities. People don't have to be hungry right now. People don't have to be scared because they're going to be evicted or not have health care, or small businesses like yours should not be worried about what's happening. But it is about priorities, and I will not go into I won't get on my soapbox here, but I will say that, we have a current administration who's just fine as long as the stock market is fine, or Wall Street, but not Main Street and what we're trying to do. So what can we do? Well, the programs you're talking about should be able to help you, both grants and loans. We have really fought, and when I say we, our Senate Democratic Caucus has fought very, very hard. Of course, the House has been leading the way to try to put money aside specifically for small businesses like yours. Minority small businesses, our smallest businesses. 3 months ago, the House of Representatives passed a bill that we can't get passed right now in the Senate, but would target money for employers with 10 or fewer employees. Really talk about small businesses, our entrepreneurs. I mean, we need to specifically be targeting both grants and loans and make it easy to get, not all the bureaucracy, right? So it needs to be easy and understandable. And the thing is, it can be. It's all a matter of who you're trying to help and what your priorities are. And that's what I find incredibly frustrating to me, as we are looking at so many people with so many hardships right now. So if you have the right people in the right places with the right priorities, and then hold them accountable, you can design help that really works. And right now we're struggling because that's honestly not happening. So, so please hang on, continue to do what you do. If our office can help you directly, please just pick up the phone, email, or phone call if there's something that we can do to walk through with you what might be available to help you right now as a small business, and we'll go fight to do everything we can for you. But please keep doing what you're doing for the community, because access to food, shelter, healthcare, pretty basic for all of us, and pretty basic in the middle of a pandemic. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you so much. I want to explain a little bit of what, just have one question about this. I am in the board for the South Division Development Plan, and this is many opportunities came, but we wanted to provide us opportunities for the small business existing then to grow, to pull out. This is the opportunity. We don't want it to this business die. They working for many years. And I think that that's a great opportunity to put a little bit in this business, to grow, to give their hands to pull out. And I appreciate your time, and I'm so excited and nervous to talk to you, but thank you so much. This is very good answer for me. This made me more peaceful, and hope to change for this corridors.
Yes, please. Muchas gracias.
Ms. Scholten, would you like to respond as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the senator speaks from her great experience just tackling these issues head on in the Senate, and I just want to thank her so much for her tireless efforts on behalf of us here in Michigan, and not forgetting those small businesses, those micro businesses, who don't fall in the, just under 500 definition for the PPP loans, to help out our mom and pop shops who are truly struggling, which, minority communities were disproportionately impacted. We're seeing that on the ground here throughout West Michigan. I also just, I really echo what she said about how important it is to elect responsive leaders. The question that Kareem had submitted to us beforehand to answer was about, how do we make our federal government more responsive? And I think it is just so important that we elect leaders who understand how the policies we create on the ground, how the policies we create in Washington impact people on the ground. I feel ready to lead day one in Congress as our representative. Yes, because of the work I've done at the federal level, in the judiciary, in the executive, but more than anything, the time that I have spent walking hand in hand with people in our community when they are struggling. Those are issues that you don't forget. And so to elect leaders who are responsive is just so crucial to improving our federal government at times such as these. And the thing I also just wanted to highlight too is that, yes, we need to have more aid for businesses who are struggling in this pandemic, but more than anything, we need to elect leaders who take the science of this pandemic seriously and who are going to stop the pandemic, because there is not enough aid in the entire world to continue to bail us out if we continue to deal with these impacts. And this is really a warning shot for what we're going to be dealing with in terms of climate change and what we're already dealing with. And so to elect leaders who take that science seriously, who believe that there is an important role for our public sector to play in addressing these issues is now more important than ever. And those are the things I'll keep in mind when I represent us in Congress.
Thank you so much, Angelica, and thank you both for your answers. Now I'd like to introduce Keith Wynn, President of Catalyst Partners, who will share his experiences working to promote sustainability within business locally and nationally. Keith? And you are muted.
For the
There we go.
past 50 years, my career, first half of that career was at Herman Miller, establishing design for environment programs and launching the green building industry. And the past 20 years, my own business has been consulting on green building projects like Circuit West, like the ICCF project, like the other projects, Brewery Vivant and the Roosevelt project we're consulting on. These standards are advanced standards. The state of Michigan currently, the energy code is based on a code that was written in 2013. It's 2020. And we now have the technology and the knowledge to build buildings for 2050. The federal government, the Energy Policy Act was initiated, I think around 1993, and it keeps getting dusted off and renewed, but we haven't had any substantive policies that I'm aware of since then that have really raised the bar again, like the Green New Deal, like the Clean Power Plan that was proposed 4 years ago. So my question is, what can we do to create these advanced standards, to support advanced standards? They have significant benefits. One of the projects in Circuit West has been saving $40,000 a year on energy costs for the past 8 years, just because they chose a more advanced standard. The other standard we're currently working with is the WELL standard, developed by the International Well Building Institute. And we're just completing a project in Kalamazoo that was started a year ago. And they will open that new building with a complete program that addresses health and well-being in buildings. Ironically, in advance of this whole pandemic, they're prepared. So being prepared, looking into the future, being proactive, you know, I've experienced in my career, does a lot more than reacting to all the things that are happening as a result of not being proactive. So my question is really, what's being done to advance these programs in the federal government? I know there's resistance, but how do we get people to understand that there's significant economic benefits in doing the right thing ahead of time, instead of spending the money later to fix the problems that are resulting as a result of not doing anything?
Senator, you're muted.
I'm not sure how that happened. I didn't mute myself, but thank you. Keith, thank you for your great work. It was wonderful to see some of it. What I'm seeing, let me give you, unfortunately, the bad news first and then some good news. But I will say, actually on the good news front, that what we are seeing is leadership from the private sector, like yourself, other private sector businesses. We're seeing local units of government, like in Grand Rapids and other places across the state of Michigan. We're seeing a lot of leadership coming from state and local governments, which is great, and from the private sector. The bad news is federally, every day they try to roll something back. And I could spend hours talking with you about that. Federally, if we don't have a change in administrations, there is no way we will tackle the climate crisis. And that's just a fact. That is not a political statement. That is a verifiable fact. I can tell you in the area of agriculture, nutrition, and forestry, where I'm the leader on the Democratic side, I put out another report. I've been doing a lot of reports in the last few years. I put out a report based on working with scientists in the USDA, many who have left in protest because the reports, the research efforts that they've been doing either were not released or not published We have universities, like our great universities in Michigan and across the country. There was some 1,400 different research papers that I put together, great big stack, that had never been publicly acknowledged since 2017, the current administration, or even shared in information, really important information that they found, frankly, that our farmers need to be able to focus on mitigating what's happening to them in the weather and with all other kinds of things that are happening to them, that they need, information they needed to know. And so all of that really has been hidden from view. We have seen the words climate crisis or climate change literally scrubbed from every part of state government. You talk about the Clean Power Plant rule, rolled back, the Environmental Protection Agency rolling back the basics. Without the support of the auto industry, the administration rolled back the fuel efficiency standards. I mean, everything has been rolled back. And we've also seen scientists, you know, the research at the Department of Agriculture, major research efforts, they, for no explainable reason, moved the agency from Washington, D.C. to Kansas to try to eliminate them. And they did. About 80% of the people were not able to move. And so they lost all this rich experience in science. So right now, what we need is a change in leadership to work with us. Now, I will give you on the positive front, if we can get change so there's a willingness to believe science, work together, do what you do what everybody knows needs to happen. We not only create jobs, by the way, then Michigan is #1 in clean energy jobs in the Midwest right now. And we can do even better. I mean, we make things, we innovate. We are the folks that can do energy efficiency and batteries and all the other things. So this is not about taking away jobs, as you know, it's about jobs. But in addition to that, there are people on both sides of the aisle that understand we need to be incentivizing wind and solar and geothermal and so on. The problem right now is the only folks that have incentives embedded in the tax code, and it's been there for 100 years. I have colleagues on the other side of the aisle that say, well, we don't want wind and solar tax incentives. We don't want to pick winners and losers. Well, 100 years ago, our country picked the winner, oil and gas, and they won.
Yeah.
So we've got, you know, we've got to change that, but there is support for that. And the final thing I will say is that in the, again, the agriculture and forestry space, I have the only bipartisan bill right now on climate in the US Senate with a Republican colleague from Indiana, Mike Braun. And it is about setting up the expertise and the measurement capacity on measuring carbon sequestration for our farmers and ranchers, broadly supported by environmental groups as well as agricultural groups, to create a way to create a carbon market and for them to benefit from aggressive carbon sequestration. We might even get that passed this year, if not, hopefully next year. So we're poised, I think, in a new Congress, in a different Senate, in a different White House. The climate crisis will be at the top of the list, right there with the pandemic. It'll be the 1-2 punch.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Scholten?
Yeah, thank you so much. Am I muted? No, good. Always want to double check that. I really echo a lot of what the senator has said as well. And, you know, this pandemic has really just provided such a test run for some of the more devastating impacts of climate change. I think that it is clear that the federal government can and should be leading the charge to help state and local governments. That doesn't mean exclusively. We absolutely can partner with our private sector, and we need to. But, you know, I think that we have seen this failed pandemic response, what has happened as a result. The government, I think, provides a crucial backstop to provide resources in the pandemic, in the case of, you know, testing, support for funding, tracing, responding, PPE. And I think that when it comes to climate change, the government needs to play a key defensive role in preventing communities from feeling the most consequential impacts here. I think there are absolutely key ways that we can be incentivizing businesses to move forward with cleaner and greener technologies. And as I said, you know, I absolutely support an all of the above approach when it comes to that.
Thank you. These technologies are proven, and you know, it's exciting to see them actually get implemented.
It really is. And, you know, I keep coming back to the fact that, you know, I know the sort of thrust of your question was, you know, how do we get people to care? And I think that's why it's so important that we do elect people who understand, who have seen how these things impact communities on the ground, and who are going to be responsive to their constituents, not special interests. And those are key things that voters are going to be paying attention to come 2020.
You know, and if I might just jump in one more time, because I get asked so many times, like, well, why can't we just do all of these things? It does take a change in people, but it's also the reality that we have major industries, and our automotive industry and manufacturing certainly benefited originally from our fossil fuel efforts and energy and getting this whole economy going and so on. Now they're all moving, you know, clean energy, and we need to move even faster. But the truth is, decades ago, folks that provide the type of energy that creates pollution, carbon pollution, the coal industry, the oil industry, oil and gas and so on, knew that if people really believed that the climate crisis was real, that carbon pollution was real, then they would be hurt economically, that they would no longer have their industry. And so they started doing everything that they could, and they've done it very successfully, saying it's not real, it's fake, it's a partisan issue, it's a whatever it is. And they've done it now for what, decades, 40 years, 50, I don't know how long. And so that somehow something that's about survival of our country and the world became a partisan issue, a political issue. And the reality is, this is, just like the pandemic is not actually a partisan issue. It's about fighting a virus and keeping us safe and stopping people from losing their lives. The climate crisis is pretty simple. We've had too much pollution, carbon, methane, other greenhouse gases for years. They're held in the atmosphere. That's why they call it greenhouse gases, because there's like, creates this whole big, you know, greenhouse around the world. And then what happens? It starts screwing up the weather. So you have too much rain and too much drought and tornadoes and you know, all the bombs, whatever, you know, all the things going on, and the heating up and what's happening in the erosion in the Great Lakes and all of that, because all of this pollution is just hanging there. And we have got to deal with this and get rid of this. Otherwise, we're just going to see more and more chaos as it relates to the weather and the environment. So we need to take the veil off of this. The folks, you know, a lot of the folks now are actually scrambling to new energies, realizing their days are numbered. You know, coal is not good to burn for the environment, period. And I'm working with colleagues who represent states where that's been their jobs, to help them say, you know what, we can get folks out of the coal mines and get them into a clean energy job, and they can make as much or more money. And we can not have to breathe all that stuff. So this is a pivotal point for us. It really, really is. And we need to cut it all away. Just look at the science, look what's happened to our country, and say, you know what, this is pretty stupid what we've been doing here as a country in the world, and we're not going to do it anymore. We're just going to stop it, and we're going to work together, and we're going to fix it.
Ms. Scholten, do you have any
Thank
closing
you.
thoughts?
I just want to say, you know, this is the issue of the day, and we need to elect leaders who will respond to this crisis with the urgency that it demands. make myself available to all of you for further questions. If you have follow-ups, you can reach out at hillary@hillary.scholten.com. I know my staff is on if they want to just put that in the chat. We welcome your comments and most importantly, your collaboration as we move forward to make sure that Michigan is on a sustainable path forward.
Well, thank you, Ms. Scholten. Good luck with your campaign with in their district. Thank you so much, Senator Stabenow, for taking time out to meet with us today, and for all of your work to promote sustainability and environmental conservation in the Great Lakes at the federal level. We are going to be wrapping up now, but if you do have further questions, I believe the senator's staff is available to answer those. If you'd like to stick around after we wrap up here. Thank you again to Keith, Kareem, and Angelica for serving as our panel today. And I'd like to make sure to note that we will continue this series next week, Tuesday, at the same time, with Peter Meyer, who have who will answer some similar questions about how he will approach climate change, sustainability, and racial equity. And you will find a registration link to that. And again, thank you all for being here, and thank you again to Hillary Scholten and Senator Stabenow.
Have a great day.
Thank you
so much. So we are wrapping up here. If you do have any questions for Senator Stabenow staff, please put that in either the Q&A or the chat function, and we'll make them available to answer those. And we are now, Rose, I'm going to need you to promote Mary Jugnet to the two panelists, if you can.
Yep, I'm on it. Here we go. She'll be rejoining in just a moment.
Okay. And Mary, is there anyone else we should add to the panel as well today?
Sorry about that. Aaron and Vernon. So Aaron Senteg and Vernon Baker are also from our staff.
Aaron will be on momentarily.
I have a question from Todd Wilson of Perfect Circle Recycling. And Todd, if you're able, I can allow you to talk to ask that directly. And I'm going to hit that button, and if you start speaking,
Hello.
Hi, Todd.
Hi there. I actually got to switch over screen because I have it in an email that I sent to Rose.
Well, in that case, while you're looking for that, we did have a question from the audience. Do you support a carbon fee and dividend approach to solving climate change? Whoever would like to answer that. Mary?
Yeah, I think that would be Aaron's
Sorry. Yeah.
area of expertise. So I'll let him handle some of that.
Yeah, Mary, happy to answer that question. Look, from the senators, look, both are very similar. I mean, what we're talking about is putting a price on carbon and allowing the market to respond, and doing that in a more stringent manner, be it through allowances and cap and trade, or, carbon fee and dividend, which is a carbon tax. They both have pluses and minuses. I think the bottom line for the boss is, actually, I think perhaps a hybrid approach can work best, where some of the stuff is done through carbon tax, carbon fee and dividend upstream, where other emissions may be an allowance system through a cap and trade that's done more downstream emissions might be the most effective way. But the bottom line is, we need bipartisan support, and both of those proposals, if constructed correctly, can achieve the desired outcomes. It's just a matter of, seeing which ones that people are more comfortable. There does seem to be some growing support lately away from cap and trade and more toward the carbon fee and dividend model. And that, and so we'll have to see how that gets rolling. I think the senator just hopes we can be in a place next year where we can have a real lively debate and move legislation to actually do a nationwide pricing mechanism so we can do the things we really need to do to address carbon emissions. Hope that answers the question.
I think so. Mindy, that was from you. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that was very helpful. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, Todd.
Yes, sir.
Did you pull your question up?
Yeah, I do have it.
All right, go ahead.
So my company, Perk Sugar Recycling, has made Grand Rapids our home to depackage food and beverage products, producing clean organic substrates for upcycling, i.e. renewable energy, composting, animal nutrition, or biogas. So for decades now, we've allowed up to 7 states and our neighboring country, Canada, to dump their trash in our landfills, depleting the life of these sites. Other than the blatant fact of generating revenue, what good comes from filling our primary disposal options and continuing to have the lowest disposal fees in the country?
Mary,
Yeah, sorry,
Todd,
Aaron, if you're able to.
Yeah, Todd, sorry. That is, tolling fees is more of a state issue, but, you raise a very valid point. And I think some of the things you're working on in terms of, a circular economy and recycling of food and waste is something we need to look at. I know there is a lot of interest at the state level on the questions of, importing Canadian trash and the merits of that. And I know the senator has been very active in that. I'm a little less familiar with that issue. I apologize. I'm happy if you would, if we can connect offline and send me some more contact info so I can have a little bit more full discussion with you to better understand and give you a better answer.
No,
Not trying to punt, Todd. I just want to make sure I'm giving you the right info.
Exactly. I understand. And, I definitely like to connect with you on afterwards and see if we can't figure out some better issues or some better resolve of because it really diminishes our capabilities, our capacity to have a full-scale, sustainably recycling throughout the state because of these low landfills.
Yeah, Todd, there is no question that, state nationwide, at least from the federal level, I'll speak to that since I work for a federal official, that we need to have some major systemic changes about the way in which we recycle our products and landfilling. That is becoming more and more the case by the day. This is not a problem that's going to go away, and we need to address it. No question, Todd. I will figure out a way to send you my email, and we can get in touch after.
That would be great. And I had a part 2 to that. In that respect, what immediate and future plans have been or are going to be implemented to encourage large generators of organic waste and recyclable materials to become more responsible for the sustainability of our great state of Michigan?
Maybe we'll substitute Michigan for the United States.
United States?
Definitely.
Well, there are certainly a number of efforts on the plastic side to address how we're dealing with plastic solutions. I will tell you that Senator Stabenow has a bill that she has introduced with Republican counterpart from Senator Portman, which deals with education and grants for curbside recycling programs. One of the things we've seen is that particularly with municipal revenue so stretched, which has only been exacerbated during the COVID time, there's a lot of communities that don't have recycling programs, or if they do, a lot of them are commingling waste together, ends up in a landfill, and we're not able to recycle them. Senator Stabenow does have a bill out there that would actually provide grants both for municipalities to manage their recycling programs in a more sustainable manner, but also for public education so people understand exactly people, when they put it out in whatever color bucket they have in their community, they think they're putting it in and it's getting recycling. And the truth is that often doesn't happen. And so the more people understand how the waste stream works, and the more we have separation of these waste materials, the more we're going to be able to use these products again and use this and produce a more sustainable circular economy.
Thank you. I fully understand.
Yeah. And Todd, I think too, I'll make sure that I connect with Aaron as you guys talk, because there was some stuff in the last Farm Bill too on composting and encouraging more of that, and USDA looking at more of the food waste efforts and decreasing those. And so want to make sure you have that information as well.
I have run across a few of them articles and have read the latest Farm Bill revisions, just kind of waiting to see if it all passes through.
Any other questions today? We have a few that are still in the chats and the Q&A, but they appear to be from people who are no longer on the call. So I'd like to hold those off in case others have thoughts they would like to share. All right. To ask one of the questions that I'm curious about, how should the federal government, and I think the senator addressed this a little bit earlier in her remarks, how should the federal government utilize climate data in its decision making?
Should be in all our decisions. I mean, that's an easy one. And the fact is that I don't want to be partisan, but I think the senator touched on this stuff, is we've been woefully inadequate on that. In fact, we've not only promoted the use of understanding about carbon emissions, we've seen this administration make some changes to where they take out factoring into carbon emissions. For example, some of the changes they made to NEPA, where we're no longer able to look at the cumulative impacts of, say, a road or construction project, a highway project, and large construction projects on emissions. Those are things we need to be looking at. We need to be understanding, and one of the things, the boss's bill with Senator Braun is, and again, I'm not the ag expert on the team. She has an old ag committee, but one of the things it does is that it enables the expertise to quantify the carbon emission savings that are done by forestry and land practices. We need to understand, if we're going to reduce emissions, we need to understand those practices that are most effective, and then incentivize those actions by our farmers that can take. They can make a huge difference, particularly on the methane emission side. But yes, the boss will say that, she sure wishes that science was guiding a lot more of our policy making these days than I think she sees right now.
Great. Hey, any parting thoughts for a wrap up here?
No, we appreciate the work that you guys consistently do, and the solid and good challenging questions that come forth, because we know you guys are doing great work, and we appreciate everything that you're doing, and we look forward to continuing to work with the forum and helping address these issues.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, and thank you for taking the extra time today, and thank you again for facilitating everything with the senator. This was very meaningful to us, and looking forward to keep seeing great things come out of our work.
Thank you all for all you do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.